Okay, welcome. We've been having a nice conversation here with everyone. Welcome to you who are in the audience, the TV audience. The title of this talk is Realizing Your Inner Truth. My name is Mark, and we have Elaine and Ola and Fred, and we're all members of Eckankar, and we share a common bond like that. We've had a lot of experiences. But this show is not necessarily about Eckankar, it's about realizing your inner truth, and maybe you'll find something out of our conversation that'll help you find your inner truth. You know, there's so much talk today about self-empowerment, and I think realizing your inner truth really goes along with that self-empowerment, because when you have this inner truth, that naturally empowers you, you know, to do something. You know, so there's a connection there. I was thinking about this topic, you know, realizing your inner truth, and I remember I was in probably college, first year of college, when I really started teaching really intensely. I grew up Catholic, and at one time when I was a kid, I was going to be a priest, you know. I thought I was going to be a priest, and I was really into it. And then I got into college, and I remember I was being in a history course. I didn't go to a seminary or anything. I was going to a secular college, you know, UConn. And I remember being in just a regular history course, and there was something in a book about Jesus walking 40 days, 40 nights. And it was just the right moment, I guess, because it was like the floor dropped out from under me. And I was wondering, what's truth? What is real? You know, all of a sudden nothing, I didn't know anymore. And that became the driving force in my life to figure out what was right. I actually dropped out of school and went in search of this, you know, and went along many paths. You know, one time I thought drugs and meditation combination, you know, and yoga would work. I found out eventually that was not the way for me, you know. Ended up, you know, running into more problems than I really wanted. And eventually I found my way to chanting and using certain words. And we're going to get into a certain word later that helps all of us, and maybe it'll help you in the audience. And so I'd just like to open it up and ask all of you on the panel here, maybe we can share different things about maybe what was a moment in your life where you started searching more earnestly, or wondering, or looking for another step, or wondering what is more.
Well, I started out in a very religious home, and I kept as a kid going, okay, and then they would tell me more things, and I go, okay, and and I never got the and. I never got, you know, when you die, you go to heaven. Okay, and it just was like, okay, but I felt like an alien in this house, because they were they're wonderful people and very religious, and I just wasn't getting it. I just kept thinking, there's more, tell me more. And they're like, no, that's it. And so when I got to be in my 20s, I decided, okay, I'm going to find out what else is out there. And I started searching, and I went through a lot of things. But never found it. And so, I mean, I remember even going to California because I heard of something else, and going to loving the mediums and loving the chanting and loving just kept looking and looking and looking and looking, and knew I had something really important to do, really, really important, but couldn't find it. And so I was watching TV one day, and this program came on, and there were these two people, and I just felt like I was drawn into the TV. It was like, what is this? What is this? And the woman said, Eckankar. And then it left because it was the end of the program. And I said, okay, all right. After I came back down, because this took me right out of my body. And I said, all right, Eckankar, Eckankar. So I get on the computer and I start typing Eckankar, and there it was. And it was everything I believed in. It was past lives. It was travel, soul travel. It was consciousness. It was just everything that I had collected, and all in one beautiful package. So then I knew I found it. Then I knew I found the important thing that I was looking for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. How about you?
Wow. Well, I grew up in Nigeria on the west coast of Africa, and growing up, I've gone through the major religions in that country, from the conventional one to Christianity to Islam. So I had a great foundation to know more about all these religions. But there are some unknowns that I wanted to tap into. I questioned majority of the things, of the teaching, and I felt like there are some truth out there that could explain the differences between all these religions. So that's why I kept searching. I believe in dreams because in the Old Testament, people that have been Christians in growing up, you know, they've talked about dreams, they talk about Moses and the Ten Commandments. And I kept asking myself, there should be more to this. Where are all this coming from? So that kept me searching when I was back in Nigeria. I've heard about Eckankar, but I was not a member of Eckankar while I was in Nigeria. But then when I got married to my husband, he was a member of Eckankar. And I just picked a book, and I just read that book. And the book was Stranger by the River. And it explained everything that I've been looking for, from understanding your dreams, for connecting to your inner self, for realizing, you know, reincarnation, soul travel, and so many things that I've been questioning growing up. I found answers, and since then, I've been following this path, and I've never really looked back. So,
Great.
There's so much that's coming through. I remember when I was about 17, 16. I was brought up Jewish. I was bar mitzvahed 13. You become a man when you sing the Haftarah. But most of the Jewish religion didn't resonate for me. Like a lot of religions, the little I've read about religions, they were dealt with power and fear, and I just wanted to have some real experience with truth and God. And talk didn't mean anything for me. So anyway, my dad, my parents weren't very religious, but I found this pocketbook on the teachings of Christ, Thomas Merton, a monk from around the 12th, 13th century, I don't remember. And I read through it and found a couple things that resonated with me, but that was it. But nothing else really resonated. And then around 1971, this friend of mine wrote me a letter, and it's a long letter, and about a paragraph of it, she's talking about Eckankar, I didn't know what it was, and this path to God realization and self-realization, and everything is light and sound. I don't know what she was talking about. Just so everybody knows, light and sound is God's love, what we call Ek, or the Holy Spirit. And it's very real. Many thousands of manifestations of light and sound, different colors, different sounds you could hear. But I just wanted to know truth. And so this friend of mine, years later, I wasn't ready in 71, but in 79, I joined Eckankar. I read a few books, and it resonated right away for me. Within a couple of weeks, I just joined. It's not, you don't need anybody to tell you anything. Well, she told me to look for a blue light. She said, everything's light and sound. I said, what are you talking about? And I just sat there, and she said, close your eyes and sing the word Hu, which is an ancient name for God. A lot of cultures know about it, maybe not the way people in Eckankar know about it, but whatever. And just close your eyes and look for a blue light in your spiritual eyes. So I just said, Hu. And first day I was afraid, so I was sweating, and I thought the devil was standing over me, really. And so I didn't have an experience because I had fear. Next day I loosened up a little bit, and I sang for about 20 minutes, a half hour, if that. And I had an experience seeing the blue light. The blue light is the inner master, the leader in Eckankar, the inner form. He has an inner and outer form. It's known as the Mahanta on the inner form. And he appeared, not his face the way he looks here, but as a blue light. And that's a sign that he's on the one of the higher planes within the lower worlds of God, in a mental world. And I saw this blue light for about a minute, and I was so happy, I can't explain. I went down to my music room, I'm a musician, I sang, I recorded myself. It was horrible, singing, playing the piano out of key, but like a little kid, 5 years old, overjoyed. And because I realized that there's much more than Fred than I can imagine. I saw myself I didn't see myself, but this being, this pulsing light or little beam of light. And I've seen it for about a week or two before I joined Eckankar. But it was saying to me, there's so much more. The secret part, the inner worlds within ourselves is real. And it was like nothing like anybody's ever spoken to me or I've ever read about or heard anybody talk about. I wanted to scream to everybody, don't you know the truth? But, you know, a lot of people are not interested. It's okay. It's a touch of my experience.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So as you're talking there, I was just remembering something that happened to me because, you know, you mentioned the blue light and then the inner master, and it's true. But it's also a consciousness that's not really a person, you know. And it shows up in many forms. Like spirit will show up in whatever you're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable, like if you're a member of Eckankar, it'll show up as if you need a physical image, it'll show up as the image of as the spiritual leader of Eckankar. And you don't always have an image because you don't always need an image. And but if somebody's like a Christian, it'll show up as Jesus, you know. If somebody's a Muslim, it'll show up as a Muhammad. So I thought of this because as you were talking, I remembered one time I was in this church and I was repairing a church organ, right? So it was a Methodist church, and the priest was just talking to me afterwards, and we're just sitting there talking. Oh, I know. I had an Eckankar bumper sticker on my back. And this was in Connecticut. It was a town called Meriden, used to have an Eckankar center, and he always drove by it, and he always saw the sign. So he was always curious, but he never went in, you know. And then he saw the bumper sticker, and so we talked about it a little bit about Eckankar, you know. And then he started talking about his parishioners. He says, yeah, they come to me and they talk. They say, Jesus, you know, they have speak to Jesus. And he didn't really believe them. You know, he didn't really believe they had these experiences. It was interesting, being the pastor, right? But he said it's an interesting thing because they all saw him. They all saw this blue light with him, you know. So to me, I'm thinking, oh yeah, they are really seeing this, you know. And there's that blue light that's there. It's coming in the Christ consciousness because that's what they resonate with, you know. But they're really having it, you know. It really struck me that they all, when he said, even though he didn't believe it, they all saw this blue, you know. It was very interesting, you know.
I think when you have an experience like that, then you don't have to explain it anymore to anybody.
Yeah.
You don't push at all.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I said to my wife, she has no religion. She's from Japan. We're married 33 years. She's my sweetheart. And it was interesting today. I mean, this is very heart-opening for me. Might not relate at all, but I said to her, I was thinking about this yesterday. We just at the dinner table earlier today. And I said, I thought about this before, but I just want to tell you, we're hardly ever hassle with each other, argue, you know. And I said, because I believe in reincarnation, I've had past lives, and in Eckankar we believe that. Not everybody has the experience. And I said to her, I can't imagine being with any other soul, any other person, in any lifetime that would be any sweeter than you've been in my life, in this lifetime. And she surprised me a little bit because I never was looking for a response back. And she says, I feel that way about you. I said, wow.
That's a wonderful moment.
Yeah, I mean, that really, if nothing more in a relationship, because I was thinking you could say I love you, but it's relative. If you believe in reincarnation, we've been married to lots of souls before, as male or female or whatever. So it's very, I'm not getting over emotional, but it's deep. But the thing about the blue light is, in Eckankar too, it's proof. It's a first cause of proof that the master, the inner master, this God-man exists, and he's here to guide those souls that are ready back into the heavenly worlds, not to leave this path, but inwardly in a state of consciousness.
Yeah.
I don't get the blue light anymore. I did at the beginning. You don't need it at a certain level. Everybody gets what they need.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting, this whole conversation. You know, there's a new TV show out, God Friended Me, and it's got some interesting things in there, you know, about coincidences and how maybe things that happen in life that seem like coincidences aren't coincidences. But one thing, when I think about realizing your inner truth, one difference between what we're talking about here, and you don't have to be a member of Eckankar to believe this, but when God friends you, like it's there, God is up there, you're down here, God is friending you. But we're talking about realizing your inner truth where it's really coming from within you. It is the deepest part of you. And you're just learning to relate to that more and more and know that that's where truth is, right inside yourself. You know, did you have any thoughts on that, or maybe an experience? You know, I think we go into it the more we're on this path, the more I think anybody who is sincere about finding what truth is will find what the truth is for them, no matter what path they're on, as long as they're sincere and persevere. It'll happen, you know. I think that's very important.
Well, I remember when I found out about, I mean, I was interested in, at first, who am I? Why do I do the things I do? And I read all these self-help books, and that's what I wanted to read and find out who I was and why I did the things I did. And then I remember finding out about the subconscious, and I remember thinking, are you kidding me? I'm having enough trouble with what I know I do. Now there's this whole other level of stuff that I don't even know about. And I just remember going, you gotta be. And I said, okay, I would like to find something that puts it right in my face. Because if I could find something that puts it right in my face, then I could do something with it. And I realize now that I created something when I did that. And it put me on the path to find Eckankar, and Eckankar puts it right in my face. For example, if you had asked me 12 years ago if I was a judgmental person, I would have said, absolutely not. I do not judge anybody or anything, absolutely not. And at a seminar, I got an experience where I had a little trouble with one of the people there. And it was a big seminar, and I was in the back, and I started coughing, and really coughing loudly, so I got some water, and then these people in back of me, we went into intermission, and then we came back, and these people in back of me, I was in the back, continued to laugh and joke, and I couldn't hear anything. And so I started getting mad at that. Why isn't someone stopping that? You know, and so then I started coughing again and coughing. I mean, it was, and I couldn't stop. And people are like looking around, and I said, okay, all right, why am I now the problem? You know, and I had this book, and I started writing, and I judged this, and I judged that, and I judged that, and I was like, I went through 3 pages of things I judged and people I've judged in my life, and I just was like, oh. And I was so grateful to those people in the back that had done that, because they set that up for me to realize how judgmental I am. I am, in fact, a professional judgmentalist, actually. I just couldn't believe it. And
that's a good term.
So
you write a book.
So do I still judge? Yes. But the difference is that when I do it, this voice goes off in my head, that was pretty judgmental, Elaine. And then I get to look at it. I get to stop it. It's like you get into control. You're in control of it now because you know it, you see it, and you can stop it. So.
Wow.
That's great.
Well, just going by what Mark said earlier, there are no coincidences. When you come to Eckankar at the beginning, you need to keep up your awareness. You know, you are tuning into spiritual guidance from the Mahanta, the masters we mentioned before. And then in your day-to-day activities, you see how you are becoming self-realization and you are becoming more in tune into spiritual guidance. I will share an experience when I was in San Diego, and the way at earlier stage, you want something that you can relate to. You want everything to be pushed into your face before you can even believe it. So I was in a situation at my old job in San Diego, California, a couple of years ago, and I was driving to work early morning, tuning in, asking for guidance. Should I take action or should I not take action? What should I do? Should I speak up or should I keep quiet? And all of a sudden, one car just came, overtook me, and came into me. I was so upset, like, what's this driver doing? just overtaking and come in front of me. And then I was just looking at that car, and at the back, in bold, it says, "Keep your mouth shut and keep your mind open." And it's like, what? Keep your mind open and your mouth shut. Exactly. That's exactly what I needed at that moment to connect with the situation. And that actually gave an answer to my inner struggle. So that's one of those things of there are no coincidences in life. We get what we need at a particular time once we tune in and we are open and we connect with the Spirit. And that's one of the things that Eckankar actually provided. You give up and give everything to the mountain. Do your spiritual exercises and look for that guidance.
Yeah, it's interesting that what you're talking about there. All of a sudden, this car pulls in front of you. It shows to me. I've been thinking about this the last few days. It shows how connected we all are.
Yep.
Life is connected. The Ek or divine spirit or whatever you call it. It sustains all life and it fills all life. And there's a certain level where we're all part of that. And that's our true nature, is to be like an atom in that body of the spirit. We're all atoms in that body. And because of that, we're all connected. And because of that, that guy who has nothing to do with Eckankar or anything would all of a sudden pull in front of you.
Yep.
Or I had an experience, my wife Becky and I were looking for, this is a few weeks ago, a few months ago actually, time flies, but we were looking for TV, one of those pull-out things, for that you can, I forgot what they're called, but you put it up on the wall and then you can move the TV around. We were having it inset in the wall. We were doing it ourselves, and so we were wondering what was the right one. We were in a Home Depot one night. It was late. There was hardly anybody in the store, and we're thinking, well, maybe this one, maybe that one. The guy just happens to walk up. He says, "Oh, I just did a project. I can tell you exactly which ones." Out of nowhere. I mean, there's hardly anybody in the store, and all of a sudden, this guy comes up. And then coincidence?
No.
Some people will think so. I don't think so. Like we were saying, you can't really prove it, but for me, it's pretty obvious.
I was thinking that, not to sound negative, but I mean, just the reality. It's everybody sees things differently, and it can change in a moment.
Sure.
Your consciousness. They said. Anyway. Well. There's a lot of people that, and I've had it in my life, I don't think I have as much now. Can't judge too much. Or you get a headache thinking about it, But, a lot of people are just into themselves, and that's all I care about. I was just talking to my wife about that, Not in a condescending way, it's just a reality. There's a lot of sweetheart people, golden heart people. There's a lot of terrorists, people killing each other, So the choice, like the spiritual master Eckankar says, it's an attitude. What you want to put your attention on. If you want to feel bad all day, I go to school, I teach at Berkeley College of Music, and years ago I remember someone saying at 10 o'clock in the morning, "I'm having a bad day." You're going to have 10 hours of a bad day? I mean, you can change in a second if you start to have a change of consciousness. But you have to work on it, Anyway, along coincidences, I had mentioned this many times before, without going into a long story. I had been following this pop singer girl some years ago, and I just loved her singing and got very emotional watching her for a few years. And I wrote 3 songs. I'm a musician. I wrote 3 songs inspired by her, not really for her. And one tune was called Joy. It's very up, could be a pop hit, I think. I just haven't put it out there, I'm just living with it. But just inspired, and it feels good. I played it for some students. They say, wow. Yeah. But I'm coming out of the train, coming back from work one day, and I'm thinking about this person, the singer, with love and, mental conversations, talking to this person. And I felt a lot of love and joy for this person over a number of years, watching this person sing. And I'm in the parking lot to get my cars, 500 cars, and within a couple seconds of thinking of her, I see a license plate. It says Joy. I don't, you know, I didn't cry, but this is just another example, without bragging, about the master that I study with in Eckankar, the living Ek master, the Mahanta, the inner master. The living Ek master is the outer form. It's one and the same. He has different functions, but it's Holy Spirit. He's one with the Ek, or the Holy Spirit. He's formless inwardly. So it's a gift from Spirit. So I find on this path that you can't measure it, but you start to becoming more of love, of what the Ek, or what God's love is. Mm-hmm. Because we're all destined, at least in Eckankar, to become spiritual masters. It's not to have any power over anybody. As you get more love, you want to give it. Mm-hmm. Like I have a beautiful wife, so, and I'm very creative musically, so I have two good things working for me. So I'm giving out some stuff. I can't measure it. I probably do some bad things too, but you know, more and more you give out love, and eventually everybody's, to my way of thinking, is destined to become a master someday, if they want to. Mm-hmm. It could be lifetimes. No one's rushing anything. My wife has no religion. She smiles. She says, I'm not interested. I said, I don't care. I love you. Love is beyond any religion anyway.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to add to that, or? You know, I was thinking that along the lines of what Fred was saying and what you were saying earlier about judging, where all of a sudden you realized that you were judging. Mm-hmm. You get to a deeper level of yourself, you know, and that's a big part of realizing your inner truth, is realizing, because the deepest part of the inner truth is free of all that, you know, and so we're learning to become more free, you know. So we say spiritual freedom, you know, we have a sense of spiritual freedom when we realize all of a sudden, like you said, now you have a choice. Mm-hmm. Of you see the judgment, but then now you can look back. Before, it was like an unconscious pattern that you had that you didn't really see. Now all of a sudden it comes to the forefront, and this is, I think, part of the path of realizing your inner truth, is seeing these patterns that you have, but also being okay with them, because they're just a part of you, you know, because you can get so involved in beating yourself up, because I know I've done that, and that doesn't really do anything, except that's another pattern that's kind of self-destructive, you know.
You know what's very interesting along the same lines? This is shocking if you've just hearing it for the first time. I'm used to it a little bit. Is the master in Eckankar said in a talk or in one of his books, just one sentence. He says, when you start having judgments about someone, you're actually seeing yourself.
Yep.
That's pretty heavy. Mm-hmm. You know, we think we're so, you know, condescending, you know, looking down, you know, and I've improved, you know, but really it's a mirror. The path of Eckankar is really a mirror of God. And it says, take a good look, because maybe you don't like everything. And it's okay, but now you're starting to become aware, maybe for the first time in many lifetimes, hundreds or thousands or millions of lifetimes, in whatever form, if you can remember it, you know. So it's heavy, but it's beautiful because it's a gift. Everything is really happening for us, not against us. The Ek, or Holy Spirit, or God's love, you know, even people dying. My wife had cancer, you know, she said, this worst day of my life. I knew it wasn't. She was out of it quickly. You know, I mean, you become stronger. I've gone through stuff. I was crying for 3 years in the car accident. I became stronger. You have more love and compassion. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't raise my hand, I want to do this, but it's a gift from God. And a lot of people, what's Fred talking about? When you live it, you'll understand. And I'm not bragging about it, because I wouldn't wish some of the stuff I went through on anybody. But you become stronger. And it's the only way for me, and you have your own thing. So we're all totally different.
Yeah. So one of the keys, I think, or one of the tools that we use along the way of realizing our inner truth is dreams. You know, we have dreams that can help us see things in our lives, maybe connections, or help us, give us guidance. You know, do you have any? Can you think of any dreams that maybe you had that would be along those lines? That would something that could have been guidance for protection, or guidance about a work situation or a relationship. Could be anything. You know, to kind of help us along.
Well, I remember one, because my dreams mostly are sort of gobbled, but I'm in a relationship with a man that I just, he's the love of my life. He's the hardest person to live with, and he's, you know, but he's been my greatest source of being able to look at myself. And but I'd had enough. I was like, you know, I'm done. I'm getting older. It was going on. It's been 17 years. It was going on like maybe 10 years. And I said, Mahanta, you know, can I stop this? Can I just call it a day? And so he had been, he had gotten in trouble, and he would get himself arrested, and he was away for 90 days. They would put him away to try to figure out his craziness. And so he had been gone, and it's like, you know, when he comes back, can I just say adios? And so I had a dream, and he was standing there in the dream, and he was looking at me, and he was going, come on, Elaine, come on. And I just kept noticing he had this blue plaid shirt on. And all I could think of, I'm like, why does he have a blue plaid shirt? He never wears any colors. He's a mechanic, so he always has those mechanic clothes on. And I'm seeing this blue plaid shirt, and I'm like, that's really weird. And so the dream ends, and his sister calls me and says, have you heard from him? And I said, no, not yet. But it's, you know, 60 days, so I probably will. And then I hear someone come in the house. And I said, oh, he's here. We'll call you later. And so he walks in, and he's standing at the door. And I look up, and he has on a blue plaid shirt. And I'm looking at it, and he says, hi. I said, come in, come in. And he sits down. And all of that just left. And it's like, no, I'm still in this. You know, I've got still a lot to learn from him. I got a lot to learn about my anger. And I knew that I was still in it with him. And that was the gift. So I said to him, Al, I mean, he does his own laundry. So I said, Al, I don't remember that blue plaid shirt. And he said, they gave it to me today when I left the hospital. And I was like, all right, I'm in it. Okay, I get it. So.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. That was my prophetic dream.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, dreams are the special way of the Mahanta guiding us, either to see the future or to better handle the current situation. One interesting dream that I had related to my mom. She was 82 back then, and she had a stroke when nobody was home. By the time we came back from work and saw her, she was totally gone. And my husband called 911. She was in the hospital. So when I saw her, she was unconscious in a coma. So I didn't know what to do. I just started crying. And I thought that was it for her, that she's not going to come out. So they moved her from one hospital to the other. And even though it was a trying moment, because it was very difficult to sit in one place and do my spiritual exercise, but I was sure that the Mahanta was with me, the inner guidance was with me throughout the process. So while she was still in intensive care, neuro-intensive care at the hospital, I had a dream one night, and in that dream state, my mom is a Christian. She's not in Eckankar. But then I saw her on the inner healing table with, of course, all the inner guidance, the inner masters with her. And at that point, it looks like they were doing some surgery on her on the healing table. And then the Mahanta told me, that's our inner guidance, said, she's going to be in this situation for a long time. At that moment, in the dream state, it was really difficult for me to accept what I heard, but it prepared me for what is coming after her stay in the hospital, being released. So when I woke up, I thought about the dream, and I said, wow, this is big. If she's going to be in that situation for a long time, how long is it going to be? I didn't know. The following day, I had another dream where my mom actually came in a soul form, our inner self, and then she told me, she was laughing, I'm not going anywhere yet. So that's another assurance that she's going to get better, but she may not totally be okay to be where she was before the stroke. After being 3 months in the hospital, she came out. she's still here. It's been about almost 4 years now. And when she came out, she couldn't walk anymore. She couldn't get up. But she was able, she came back with all her memories. She can use her hand. She still crack jokes. She, you know, she's awesome. We are so happy to still have her around. But at that trial moment, the inner guidance was with me, you know, showing me the way, getting me ready, preparing me of what to come. And that is another way that the Mahanta, our inner guidance, inner master, you know, prepare us for what is coming up in the future and how to actually handle the current situation. So connecting and, you know, through dreams is very, very important. It's one of the key teaching in Eckankar.
Mm-hmm. It's really, from what I remember early on in Ek, I got into it in 1979, joined, became a member. Excuse me. They say 90% of the teachings in Eckankar are in the dream state, where the master can work with you. He actually works taking karma away from you, which is very unique and beyond a blessing. If we try to do it by ourselves, it could take many lifetimes.
Yep.
And anyway, I just want to tell you two brief things. My wife, who's the no religion person, I've spoken about Eckankar many times. She's very open. It's, you know, good and bad things I'm going through. It's just like, you know, I had a bad day at work, yeah, or a good day, you know, good student or whatever. This is just things I'm learning, you know, falling on myself and some, you know, making progress. So I share because she's a good listener and she's with me, you know, 100%. So she came to me one day, and I spoke about dreams. She has very clear dreams, but she's not interested in dreams. And she tells me, you know, but I share stuff with her because I know she understands that it's real, but she's not interested. It's okay. So maybe 15 years ago, she comes to me. Now her best friend, who, I won't go into the story, who I think brought us together in Japan many years ago, her friend committed suicide when she was in her early 20s. She only spoke about it once or twice, and no one knew what she was going through. My wife either, so it was almost like a betrayal in a way. The family didn't know, you know, not to share with this boyfriend or whatever she was going through for a long time. It's kind of crazy. So anyway, about 15 years ago, after I was speaking about dreams for a long time, my wife comes over to me one day, and she says, I was just with my best friend. Mm-hmm. She said, I had this dream, it was so real. I said, I told you, I'm not trying to get you into Eckankar. You are soul, a spark of God, like me. No, I'm not better or worse than you. You don't want a religion in this lifetime or whatever, you know. It's like a musician. You practice, you get better. I got to be good because I practice a lot. You don't practice, my students, I tell them, you be like me, you know. With Japanese, I know 5 words after 33 years. I use that because it's a tool, you know. I really, but I said, look, you know, it's real. You have a love bond with this soul, you know. So that was it. So I said, I didn't push anything on you. You came to me. Remember this, you know. The other thing was with my mom, who passed about 11 years ago. I was having depression for about a month. It was kind of unusual for me. And this a few years back, after my mother had died, about 10, 11 years ago. But for about a month, I'm feeling depressed. Still carrying on, but not feeling good. So one of the last dream I had in the morning, I saw my mom as she was when she was about 30 years old, wearing the dress that I remember when she had her 50th anniversary with my father down in Florida when I visited with my brother and sister and my wife, and this beautiful colored blue and whatever dress. And she was beautiful, like moms are from the 1917 or whatever. And I was so happy to see her. I kissed her on the lips for a long time. I was just so happy. And then that was it. And I didn't forget about it because I write down my dreams. You're going to forget if you don't write them down. So that morning, in the physical, after the dream, I'm sharing with my wife. Not every dream, but this one. And I said, to my wife, I said, I was just with Mom, and I felt so good. I was like a little boy, but I was my age with my mother, who was much younger than me, you know. And I started to cry as I'm telling my wife. And after that, the depression was gone.
Wow.
There was a healing, because that soul, my mom, in my lifetime when she was alive, she was my mom, you know, but with past lives, I've had lots of moms, and I've probably been a mom to someone else, you know. So it was very beautiful that she came to me. She could have been older too, but it didn't matter, but she was this vibrant woman. I remember when I was this little tiny kid with my brother down in Florida in the water, in the ocean with my mom, and she was this beautiful woman, you know, this little kid holding her. So it just opened the heart. So we get all these thousands of different things that do something to you. That was a healing from spirit for me that way.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about, you know, you're talking about, you know, moms, and my dad passed away a few years ago, but I had a couple dreams along with him that fits along with this whole theme, you know. Part of it is the guidance that you get, and part of it is, like you were saying, you can sometimes work off karma in a dream, you know, the mantra helps us. So before he died, I had this dream where, I didn't dream a lot with my dad, but I had this dream where all of a sudden he was selling real estate. Now, he didn't do that in real life, you know. He was a manager in a electronics place that made relays. He was a plant manager. I said, well, that's interesting. Then I realized he's selling all his stuff. He's telling me he's not much longer for this world. That's what he's telling me in this dream. And it was a few months after that he passed away, you know. So it was kind of helped me prepare, you know. And then, so that whole thing happened. And then a few years after that, I didn't really have a lot of dreams with him. And then it was like 2 or 3 years ago, on his birthday, which was interesting. On his birthday, I had a dream with him. And in the dream, actually, I didn't see him, but when I grew up, he always had this favorite chair in the living room that he used to sit in at night, fall asleep to the TV on, you know, glass of wine over here. But he always had this chair. Nobody else sat in it while he was there. It was his chair, you know. In the dream, I had to find this chair. Nobody else cared, but I had to get this chair for him. It was very important in the dream, get this chair for him. I woke up from that. It was interesting that it was on his birthday, you know. And I said, wow, I have more of a connection to him than I realized, you know, because I hadn't really thought about it much, but I realized I had more. Then the next year, on his birthday again, I had another dream with him, and in this dream, he was dead. And it was like a funeral, and he was in a coffin, and there was pallbearers bringing it up to the up into the church, you know. And there was too many pallbearers. There's too many. And I said, I don't have to do this. You know, somebody else, you know, you do it. And I woke up from that, and I realized my karma with him is done. You know, but I didn't have a lot of working out, you know, in between in other states, you know, in the dreams or whatever, you know, and even in the life. You know, we had our moments. I mean, overall, we went along pretty good, but especially, you know, teenage years and late, you know, we had our challenges, especially with him being the biggest challenges we had was him being a deacon in the Catholic Church and me leaving the church. That was, you know, we had a few battles over that one, you know, but then we got along well after that. We just never discussed it again, you know, after he realized I was going my way, and it was more important for him to keep family than it was to have to throw somebody out because of a belief, you know. I've always appreciated that about my dad. So, but it was interesting, you know, these dreams, you know, and the fact that realizing my karma with him is done, even though it was worked out in the dreams, like you were talking about, it can be worked out in dreams, you know. So.
You know, some people, if they even believe in karma, there's good and bad karma.
Right.
So, you know, when you say karma, you know, so, you know,
That's true.
I was in a serious car accident in 2000 where a man was paralyzed, and I was crying for 3 years every day. My wife reminded me. I told her, thanks for sharing, you know.
Yeah.
But, so there was some karmic stuff there. And my wife, after the accident, a week later, I'm taking a walk with her. We were back in Boston from Florida where the accident happened. I was visiting my mom back in 2000. And I'm walking with my wife, and she says, I didn't tell you. This is the non-religious person. She says, I had a dream a day or two after the accident when we were down at your mom's house after the accident. And the man came over to you, and he said, Mr. Lipsius, he gave you a hug. He was a black man, a little older than me. He was in the accident. He was paralyzed from his neck down. And I've never been in a fight in my life, so it was very traumatic for me. I never felt I caused the accident, but I lost in court, you know, whatever. But my wife said he came over and said, "Miss Lewis," he gave me a hug. And then the dream, she wanted to see more, but the dream dissipated. And I said, maybe that's all you need to see. And she shared that with me. I said, thank you. So there's a karmic thing. I don't know what we did. I've still never seen it from the past. Maybe I don't need to know. That's part of growing to spirituality, consciousness, is to be able to let things go, too. Because on this path of Eckankar, we're learning, right, how to be detached. You know, doesn't mean cold. You know, the master says, as you get further up to mastership, if you're interested, you have more love and compassion. I said, I don't know if I can handle. You know, I thought I was a pretty compassionate, loving person. You know, I'm not bragging, but being sensitive, because I've been sensitive this lifetime. Like more, and the master's probably laughing as I say this, because I'm probably just touched the iceberg. But you know, you get what you can handle. You know, but there was a love bond between this man in a higher plane. You know, in the dreams, there's higher worlds of God. It's not just, from my understanding and experience, there's no just one heaven. There are thousands, millions of heavens for each state of consciousness.
Yeah.
So that's true. Did you have something you wanted to share right there?
No, not yet. Still thinking.
Okay. You know, we can keep on talking, but I want to, before we go too much farther in the program, because there's not a real lot of time left. You know, one of the main tools we used, and it was mentioned earlier, is that helps us connect more with our inner truth, is the singing this word "Hugh."
Hugh, yep.
And it's a word that has a spiritual power to it. And it's a word that when you sing it, it helps you connect more deeply with your own divine nature. Because our own inner divine nature resonates with that word. The deepest part of God, you want to call it, is the deepest part of ourselves. It's not separate. It's deep inside us. So when we sing this word like Hugh, and other people sing like Om, we sing it in a similar way. It's like a mantra, you know, but it has a deep connection where the more you sing it, the more you connect with the deeper part of yourself, and the more you start having these guidance, you don't have more, but you notice it more. It's always there. You just start noticing it more, and you start having these realizations. But it's all because you're connecting more, and this word of singing the Hugh, that's all you have to do. You don't even have to believe it. You just have to have an open mind and try it. You know, it's up to you if you want to do that or not. But it doesn't matter what religion you belong to. You don't even have to believe in anything. All you have to do is want to sing Hugh. And I know many people who are not in Eckankar that sing Hugh and love it, and they get insights. So we're just going to give a demonstration right now of singing Hugh. We're just going to do it for a couple of minutes. So when you sing in a word like this, the main thing to do is you just kind of quiet your mind, and it's important. You can put your focus on your third eye, which is like a little behind your eyebrows, like about an inch in. That's what we call it, the spiritual eye. It's your mind's eye, like when you're looking in your imagination or when you're dreaming. That's what you're using. You're using that spiritual eye. So you put your attention there, and you think of something you love. It doesn't really matter what it is. If you have a spiritual guide, then you can put a picture of that guide there, or you can just put anything. You know, it's just about having that feeling of love. If you have a pet, you can put the pet there, but it's having that feeling of love is the main thing. And so you have that feeling of love, and it's a love for creation. It's a love for God, if you want to call it that. You know, what is God? God is a word. It's kind of a charged word. Some people have an image of this mean God that's up there, and then they don't like the word God, you know. But it's not really a person. It's a force. It's a divine force that's inside all of us, and it helps sustain all this life. It's created it and sustain us. And really, it's not male or female. It's just there. It's just keeps things going, you know. So it helps us connect with this. So as you're singing with love, you just sing this Hugh, and it's a gratefulness of being alive and having this connectivity. And it's also a feeling, it goes two ways. You give the love to spirit, or whatever you want to call it, and it gives it back. It goes both ways. So we're just going to sing Hugh for a minute or two here, and you can get a sense of it. So we'll close our eyes. And you can sing it with eyes open too. We're going to do it with eyes closed, and put our attention on the spiritual eye. Fill ourselves with love. And we're going to sing Hugh for a couple of minutes. Silence. And we're going to keep this moment of silence brief right now because we're on TV, but normally after we sing Hugh, we go into what we call a quiet contemplation, and it's just we're open and our minds are quiet, and it gives an opportunity for insights to come in. And sometimes if we have a question, we can ask the question before we sing Hugh and then go into that quiet contemplation and sometimes get an answer. And we may not have an answer right away, but we will have an answer eventually. As long as I said earlier, if your heart is sincere and you persevere, you will get your answers. So we just have a few minutes left here. Does anybody want to share something quick about the Hugh or anything that you've thought of during this conversation that you haven't said yet?
Yes, it came to mind in my searching years ago. I heard this definition about spiritual growth, and it was there's three kinds of people in this world. There's people that have found the light switch to spiritual growth, turned it on, and they're walking in the light, and they're living in the light, and they're growing in the light. And then there's people that know there's a light switch, and they got their flashlights, and they're searching and searching and searching and searching and searching, looking for that light switch. And then there's people that have no clue there's even a light switch. And I think we've all had lives where we were everything. And for me, the Hugh turned the light switch on. and if you can find what it is that turns your light switch on, then that's sort of why we're here, is to find that switch, turn it on, and keep on going.
Wow.
That's great. Anybody else?
I was thinking that, I didn't want to interrupt you, but when you're talking about something within, I found, at least in Eckankar, that this could be shocking to a lot of people too, that we're miniature versions of God. We're all part of God, like I said, soul or atom or, of God, spark of God. But we have all the universes, everything, all the planets that the scientists are still discovering, the millions. And that's just, the Yak masters call the earth and the lower world, here, the physical world, the ashcan of the universe. But we have all the universes of God into the highest regions of God within ourselves. And a lot of us, we can't handle it yet or whatever. As you get a little at a time, some move quicker, just like in music. Some people move quick, some are very slow. I'm slow with my Japanese. I know 5 words in 33 years, Yeah.
So we're probably going to keep the conversation going even after the show ends a little bit, but I just wanted to mention before we stop, if you're interested more about what we're talking about, or in Eckankar in particular, there's a website, eckankar.org, and it gives a lot of information there. And it also gives pictures of the spiritual leader of Eckankar, and other masters have been mentioned too. And there's one place on that website where you can find pictures of these masters, and many people that have nothing to do with Eckankar have noticed when they see these pictures that they've had experiences with these people in their dreams. So, if you're inclined to that type of thing, you might want to check that out. You know, and we have our own website in Massachusetts, eckinmass.org, ECKINMASS.org, and you can find out activities if you wanted to check things out more. It's up to you, you know. We have something in Arlington in the actually it's the third Sunday of the month. We have what we call light and sound service, where everybody there is learning to connect more with the light and sound, which is basically divine love. And it's a great experience for that. There's a lot of singing of Hugh, and it's a very experiential thing. There's talking and there's group sharing also, where everybody shares, because we believe everybody has some experience, and we welcome all experiences. We don't feel like ours are better than anybody else's. You know, everybody has spiritual experiences, and we love to hear them, actually, and that's the main part of the service. So we have that in Arlington on the third Sunday at the Theosophical Society building, actually, in Arlington at 11 in the morning. And so those are the main things I wanted to put as far as more information, but we can kind of continue here talking as we kind of finish up the program, because I'm having fun listening to everybody's conversations. And so do you have anything more you'd like to say, Ola, or are you all set there?
I'm set.
You all set? Great. You shared some great stuff today. So
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Everybody did. You know, it's funny how this is kind of like satsang class. You know, we have what we call satsang class for members. And I'm not sure, the guy's waving at me. I'm not sure what that means, but
good night.
Good night. Gives me good night, as they used to say in Ed Sullivan.